imagine you have just been assigned or appointed a project manager, or you're even a project member, you have just been assigned into a project. And your main concern is, how am I going to start the project planning process? Or what exactly is the project planning process? Where am I going to start from? What am I supposed to do? Don't look elsewhere. In this video, I'm going to take you through step by step on all that you need for you to complete a project plan. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Oscar Mbira. I'm a certified program and project manager. This is the channel which I use to help aspiring and also practicing project managers to succeed. So in this video, I'm going to take you through step by step on all that is required for you to come up with a project plan. Even if you want to start from scratch, or even if you have some experience, this video is for you. So let's get started. So when it comes to project planning, I can say this is actually one of the most interesting parts of project management activities. So you might be asking, what is interesting about it? I'm going to cover a few areas which are very important if you want to master project planning in a project environment. So the first part of it, of course, I'm going to start with the introduction in terms of what is planning, why you need planning. And then the second part, I'm also going to look at one of the most powerful and important approach in terms of project planning. This is called product-based project planning. So we're going to look at how do you identify products in a project environment, and also how do you create product flow diagrams in a project environment, and also how do you create what is called product breakdown structure, PBS, which is also very, very important when it comes to planning. Then we're going to move on also to look at how do you do estimations, how do you do also scheduling, how do you do even what is called resource leveling. This is also part of project planning, and it's quite important that you master these concepts. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button, so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help the channel to grow. It will also help the channel to produce more videos like this one. The last part we're going to look at is called project plan documentation. You're going to appreciate why you need to document your plan. Most project managers, they make a mistake of just creating a schedule of activities, then they just start presenting it, even sharing it with team members, without documenting what exactly is in the plan, like assumptions, constraints, and so on and so forth. So we're going to cover that in the next few minutes. Let's move on. So, normally, after a project has been given a mandate, you first get your mandate, and then you move on to do what is called project startup. So after project startup and you're a project manager, in most cases, this is where the planning activities, they start. I know some of you might say, no, Oscar, it will start later, it will start in initiation, and so on and so forth. Let me tell you, the first planning activity is done in project startup. So how do we do that? In project startup, you're going to plan the initiation stage. That is the first stage you're going to plan in a project environment, initiation. I've seen so many project managers, even program managers, making a mistake where they don't plan the initiation activities. Initiation activities, there are so many. I've also created a video on project initiation. You can also watch it from. I've also created a video. If you want to dive deeper into appreciating what is project planning, I've also created an ebook which you can access in the description below. It will help you to appreciate step by step how do you start project planning from scratch all the way up to the end. So project initiation on its own, it's a stage. So you might be asking, what is a stage? A stage is a set of activities that can be done at once or in parallel. So project initiation is a stage on its own. So after project startup, that is a validation of the business idea and also confirmation of the brief of the project, you now need to plan your project initiation stage. So that is one of the first plans you're going to encounter when you're planning a project. It's not going to be very much in terms of details, but it's going to itemize or to clarify how are you going to start and when are you going to start initiation. What products or deliverables are you going to create in initiation? For example, you can create a risk management strategy document. I also have a video on that. You can also even create quality management strategy document. I have also a video on that. You can also create a communication management strategy document. I also have a video on that. So this is important, and you appreciate why you have to plan that stage. So after planning the initiation stage, this is now the stage where you're going to expand the project plan. In most cases, what you get in the initial documents, for example, the statement of work, or even probably the project brief, you don't normally get a complete project plan, but you have a high level, which says, for example, you're going to run the project for 18 months, as an example. But the details, they are not yet added into the plan. And part of the initiation process is to do the project plan for the whole project. So this is where you are going to encounter the second part of project plan. But now, in this comprehensive, is going to plan from the beginning of the project all the way up to the closure of the project, which is very, very important. So during the project initiation, what I normally do when I want to plan the project, the whole project, is to involve everyone. Don't make a mistake I've seen with so many project managers. During initiation, they lock themselves into some room for 2-3 days. They come up with a project plan which they believe is the best, only to be told by other specialists that you have left in specific areas, you have not included specific activities. So the best that I can advise you to do is, if ever you want to do any project plan, always have a planning workshop. Take it from me, you need a project planning workshop. Depending on the size of the project. I was involved in one of the projects where it took us 2 months just for planning. And let me clarify that. In terms of planning, you need to strike a balance. I've seen some other project managers also doing what is called over-planning, which is not good because you're wasting time. Also, it depends on the complexity of the project. There is also a scenario I've seen project managers under-planning. What do I mean by under-planning? Which means they're not involved or included so many activities that are required for that project. So both approaches, over-planning and under-planning, they have their own pros and cons. So what I would advise you to do is you should be able to strike a balance between the needs of the project and what are the objectives of the project, the environment of the project, and also the industry of the project, and even the type of the project. Say, for example, it's something that is time critical. So you'll find that it's easier to spend more time planning in detail so that you don't miss, because time is of essence in this particular situation. But there are also some cases where time is not critical. So which means you don't need to spend more time over planning, because you can still recover or you can still extend. There are also some projects which are business critical or mission critical. So those type of projects, you find you go more into details. So planning also depends on the type, the environment of the project in which you're going to run, and also the industry. In the initiation stage, you should create a project planning workshop. What I normally do, which I believe it can also help you, is once you've been appointed a project manager, or when you start running the project, try as much as possible to include more experienced project members into your sessions. The reason for doing that is no one has got monopoly over knowledge. So there are also some things you might want to gain from experienced members as you do your planning. And I can tell you, this process of planning a project, especially if it is complex and big, it is time consuming and is very exhaustive. Then we are going to move on also to look at how do you do estimations, how do you do also scheduling, how do you do even what is called resource leveling. This is also part of project planning, and it's quite important that you master these concepts. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help the channel to grow. It will also help the channel to produce more videos like this one. But you will enjoy the benefits and the fruits of doing that. So the process of project planning also is done in 3 levels. I'm going to explain to you on this. The first level is the complete project plan, which means you're planning from the beginning all the way up to the end. And then the second level is on the stages. Some they want to call them phases, some they want to call them blocks. The concept is the same. You are saying, within the project, there's a certain stage you want to plan. I'll give you a good example of software development. So during software development, there's something which they call the design phase or stage, which means they have to start the design and finish and then move on to the build of the solution. So that design stage, don't just go into design stage. You should be able to plan that particular stage. There are so many parameters you need to consider when you're planning. It will also help to control the project. It will also help to have a proper view, because when you're planning a specific stage, you are looking at things like even your financial budget for that stage. You are also looking at resources, whether human or non-human, which is supposed to be pulled into that specific stage. So it is quite important, apparent, that you also plan each and every stage. So that is the second level. The third level is on the team level planning, which is normally the last one. This team level planning is optional, but for big and complex projects, this is not optional. So as you move from one level to the other, the details becomes more and more, but the duration also becomes small and small. So what do I mean by this? When you're planning the project maybe is for 3 years, but your stages, you find probably they are for 2 months, 3 months, like that. So it's very normal and common to have a number of stages when you're doing your project planning. It's also very normal and common to have a number of team plans. Okay, so team plans are part of a stage. Stage is part of the project plan. You need to master that. If you don't master that, it becomes very difficult for you to run a project. So when it comes to planning, those 3 levels, it is the same approach. What might differ is to what extent or to what degree are you going to do the planning. Is it going to be very detailed? Is it going to be time consuming? Is it going to be brief? Is it going to be summarized? But in terms of the concept of planning, it is the same thing. Whatever you apply at project management, whatever you apply at project level, and whatever you apply at stage plan level, whatever you apply at team plan level is the same concept. It's only the degree and level of planning that you have to do. So, taking these 3 like one item, I'm just going to refer them as project planning. I want to move on to explain one of the most important and underrated approach when it comes to project planning. It's called product-based planning. I know if you are someone who is coming from the traditional way of planning, where you start with activities, you can try to argue and say, it's not necessarily just a waste of time. But let me give you a good example. Say, for example, I've got a project, maybe for a week or so, to paint my house. And then you're the project manager. Then I request you to give me an estimation as to how long is it going to take you to paint my house. I know you now have so many questions. Maybe you're asking, how big is the house, for example? And how many rooms, for example? Is it a 2-story, 3-story house, for example? So I think with those questions, you can now agree with me why you need to start with products instead of starting with the activities. If you disagree with my view, let me know in the comment section. But what I'm telling you is product-based planning is one of the best and strongest and even one of the excellent way of planning a project. I'm going to go deeper into what do we mean by product-based planning. So let's move on to product-based planning. You need to think first about what are you going to produce in the project. We normally call them deliverables, if you want. Some they call them products, some they just call them outcome. Remember, a project is normally 3 expected things. The first one is either you're creating a product through that project, or probably you're creating even a service through that, or it's just a normal result. For example, you want to improve customer experience, something like that, or even a procedure, or even a process. So some of them are tangible, some of them they're not tangible. But at the end of the day, a project must have some objective or some goals to meet. So, based on the goals and objectives, you must have some things which you are going to create in the project or which you are going to use in the project. In most cases, the products are classified into 2 categories. They can be internal products or deliverables. So what it means is the project team or the delivery team in the project, they are responsible for creating those particular products. Then if it's external, it is something that you require in the project, but it's coming from outside the project. In most cases, you'll find things like raw materials. You might not be, assuming you're creating a product on a bathing soap, as an example. You need raw materials for you to create the bathing soap. So if you need raw materials, in most cases, you find you acquire them from suppliers. So those are external products, but you still need them. Okay? Internal products, for example, it could be a procedure or a process or even a report that you want to create internally, or even a template or even a form that you want to design internally. So that is within your control. But for the external products, they are not within your control. I've seen so many project managers making a mistake. They focus more on internal products, then they forget or even they miss to plan about external products. Don't make that mistake. Your plan should include everything. So that is why I was saying you need a workshop on planning. If you know your product is going to require both external and internal, then involve the suppliers as early as possible, especially during your planning. You need to know from the suppliers, how long does it take for them to produce the raw material, as an example. You need to know from them, when are their resources going to be available to start working on the project. So if you don't consider that, you'll find that you're busy planning and the supplier is going to come and say, the earliest time our resources are going to be available is after 6 months. You were basing on planning for 2 weeks, a month, or even 2 months. So that is, the workshop is very, very important when you do planning. It helps you to go through what you need. It helps you to go through even the products. So in product-based planning, there are also certain activities that you have to perform. One of the activities is to have a checklist of all the products. How do you create that checklist? You need a workshop, project planning workshop. So what you do with this is you list all the products that you expect to have or to produce within the project, from the beginning all the way up to the end. And I'm telling you, there are 2 iterations you need to do. The first iteration is to list all the products from, they are called management products, which means from a project management point of view. We are talking about things like a risk register. I also have a video on that. We are also talking about your configuration strategy document. I also have a video on that. And you're also talking about your risk strategy document. So these are on the management side. But what is more important, which I believe you can also follow, which helped me in my projects, is the specialist-based products. In most cases, project management-based products, they're almost the same. What differs is the content and also probably is the amount of information that goes there. But you still need them, especially to be customized for the specific project that you're running. So for me, that one is under control because templates have been known and also what information to capture in the management products, that has been known. The biggest worry which you should consider is mainly on the specialist products. You might be asking, Oscar, what are these specialist products? So by specialist products, I'm talking about the products that are specific to that project. Okay? Management products, for example, I was talking about quality register. Quality register is the same. Whether you're doing construction project, research, IT project, banking project, is the same. But when it comes to specialist products, these are very specific to the project. And it is also very, very important that is you pay more focus or you pay more attention to these specialist products. So you list your products, all of them. Normally, it might not happen within the first iteration. It will take a number of iterations for you to say, now we have confirmed the list and all the products that we need in the project. So with that list, you create what is called a checklist. Why do you need this checklist during initiation stage? You are going to be producing these products throughout the project. So you don't want to miss any specific product. That is one weakness you normally find with the traditional approach of planning with activities. You are likely going to miss a number of products. Unless if it's something that is very small, or it's something that you have done before, or it's something that you have so many experienced people. But at the end of the day, we are all human beings. We tend to forget. So you're likely going to forget some of these products if you focus more on the activities than focusing more on what you want to produce. Remember my example on a house project. So if it was focusing on the activities, you're going to say, I'm going to buy paint, I start painting, I need 4 days, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, you don't even know how big the house is in terms of quantities. How many are you going to buy in terms of painting quantities? So it is quite important also that you focus more on what you want to produce as compared to the activities to produce. We're going to discuss more about the activities later in the video, but I want us to focus more on the project, product, or deliverables. That is very, very important. Painting. So, after creating the product list, one of the basic and expected activity is to document the products. You might be asking, what does document mean? You need to document the product descriptions. The process of documenting has got so many sections when it comes to product documentation or product description. So I'm going to take you through these sections one by one so that you appreciate how to document a product. If you want to download, I also have a template on the product description. You can also find the link in the description below. One of the most important sections you have to capture in your product description document is the identifier. This is very important. You need to be able to identify a product throughout the project. Say, for example, it's an executive report, which you normally do maybe once in 3 months or once in a month, like that. You want to be able to identify that, so you need to assign an identifier. I've seen some project managers using numeric, but I can tell you it's very difficult for someone to just remember report number 2, number 30, and so on and so forth. And also you might end up running out of numbers or having very big numbers. But you can also use numeric. I've also used in some of my projects. I would prefer an alphanumeric setup, which means you're mixing letters and also numbers. For example, you say ABC, 1, 2, 3. But it's all up to you. It's a free format. You can choose the way you want to create an identifier. But you should be able to identify a product throughout the project. So that is the first section. The second section, you're also supposed to put the title. And on the title, try to summarize. Don't put a big story on it, because remember, these are some of the items you're going to use when you create your product flow or even a product-based structure. So try to make it simple. Where it's applicable, you can even use an abbreviation. For example, business requirement document, you can just call it BRD as an example. Or if it's a design document, you can just call it design document IDD, something like that. If it's a report, you can say RRD for report request document. But it's all up to you. Just try to make it as simple as possible. I've seen some projects where some project managers, they create a legend or even some key to say if it is BRD, it means BRD. But it will take also some time for someone to read the abbreviation first and then going on to the key to try to understand. So my advice is try as much as possible to make it summarized so that it makes sense. Then we're going to move on also to look at how do you do estimations, how do you do also scheduling, how do you do even what is called resource leveling. This is also part of project planning, and it's quite important that you master these concepts. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help the channel to grow. It will also help the channel to produce more videos like this one. After the title, what is expected in terms of documenting the products or the deliverable? You must always put the purpose. You don't want to have some things you don't need in the project, or you don't know what is going to be the use of that product. So if you don't need it, don't include it, don't produce it. So you also need to describe the purpose of that product. Say, for example, this is going to be a design document that is going to be used to build the system, if it is a software system, as an example. So there are also some products which are composites, which means they are also made of other products. For example, you want a product like an engine. Engine has got so many other components inside. So the other section you also need to capture is the composition of the product. Okay. So you might be asking, why are we going through all these sections? When it comes to planning, these specific items are very important for your planning. Say, for example, one of the components in the composite product is coming from outside the project. So you have to plan for that. And you have to plan by consulting either the supplier or the manufacturer. So the composition of the product should also be captured in the product description. Then there are some products which are derived from some other products. Remember, we spoke about our product flow. For you to come up with a design solution, there must be a requirement solution. So you also need to put the details as to derivations. Is it coming from another product? You also need to capture that. Why you need to capture that? During the planning process, you also need to make sure you've included all those activities because it's a derived product. So you need to say how is it being derived from the previous product or from another product, what activities have to be done. So that has to be captured as part of the product description also. So the other information that you have to capture when you are capturing the product description is also the format and presentation, okay? The reason for doing that is when you go deeper into activities to produce the product and you know the format and you know the presentation, it becomes very easy in your plan to capture the actual detail. So many project managers, they get surprises. They have not captured this product. Remember, we're using product-based approach, not the traditional activity-based approach. They start discovering that there are certain products they are supposed to create and they were not planned for. Some of them might even take long, some might not. I think you can now agree with me why I was saying product-based approach is one of the best planning approach that I normally use, and it has given me results. So you also need to capture all those details. Also in the product description, you're supposed to capture the skills required to create that product. The reason why you're capturing that, remember we spoke about product flow. You also want to be able to plan, say for example, you want training for the people to be able to produce the product, or you want to import the skills from somewhere else, probably it will be additional budget and so on and so forth. So it is quite important that you also capture the skills that are required to produce that product. Then the next part of it is the quality criteria. Everything that you produce in a project, there must be someone to check. It could be a team manager, it could be a team member, or even you as a project manager. But what are you going to check? So that has to be defined upfront. If you don't define that, it means you're not going to be able to plan for it. So you need to define the quality criteria for each and every product that you're going to produce or that you're going to use in the project. For example, you might say, in terms of weight, it should be 60 kgs. So when the product is done, you weigh it, you check, and then you make a judgment. If it is a document, probably you're saying the minimum is 5 pages. So it means once the team which is building the product, they have confirmed they are done, you also check, is it 5 pages, 6, 7? Then you can confirm it's good or not, or fit for purpose. So quality criteria is very important. There's also quality tolerance. You also need to put it in the product description so that as a project manager, you plan for that tolerance. So you could be asking, Oscar, what is this quality tolerance? Tolerance, we are talking about how flexible, to what extent can you miss the requirements, but still the product is acceptable. I've seen it with weight, for example. Someone might say the final product must be, say for example, 30 kgs. And then maybe by any margin of error, it's 29 kgs, it can be accepted, which means the tolerance is 1 kg, it's accepted. In some cases, they're very strict. 30 must be 30. So it also needs to be defined in the product description section of the product. How are you going to accept anything that is that was not according to the requested or to the requirements? So that is also very important to capture. Then the next section also, which is very important, is also the quality method. How are you going to confirm that the products, they are complete? How are you going to confirm that the products are fit for purpose? That is very, very important to note in a product description document. And it is also very important for you to note that because you're going to use it during your planning process. Say, for example, the quality method is in process. There are normally 2 quality methods that you can use, in process and appraisal. By in process, I mean, as the product is being created, it is also being checked against the quality methods or the quality criteria that you have defined earlier. Then appraisal is you wait for the product to be finished and then you check. So quality methods must be part of your product description because you need it during planning. Say, for example, the quality method or checks, they're going to involve external inspectors. We normally see it with construction projects. Local board inspectors, they might come to check if things are being done properly. So imagine you had not planned for that, and you want to book the local board inspectors to come maybe within a week or 2 weeks. You are told they can only be available after 4 months because they are busy with other projects. So I believe you can now see how we are linking product description and planning and why you should use the product-based approach. So that is also very important. It must be recorded in terms of quality method. One is also on the quality skills that are required. How are you going to determine who is going to do that? Are they qualified? Where are you going to get the people to confirm the quality? So it also has to be part of your product description. And then you also include it into your project plan. Last but not least, in terms of product description, is the quality responsibility. Each and every product that you create, it must have someone who has to be responsible to confirm and accept the product. Is it now okay? Or does it require some changes? Or does it require even a total revamp, and so on and so forth? So in your product description, make sure you also have the quality responsibility. That is very important, especially for planning purposes. When you are planning, you need to know who is responsible for what product, how long are they going to take, what do they need, and so on and so forth. Last but not, so what is expected now in this approach or product-based approach in terms of planning? When you are done with the list of your products, the next stage now is to categorize them. So there are different scenarios where this is very straightforward. I'm going to give you a good example on how to categorize. For example, I was involved in one of the banking projects where we're changing from an old system to the new system. So changing from old to new system, there were quite a number of activities to be done. There were quite a number of products to be done. But at the end of the day, I had to categorize it into a few categories. One of them was data migration. You might want to call it data migration, it's the same thing. Because we were moving from old system to the new one, there was a need to take information from the old system, that was the data migration, to the new system. So I had that category. And also we had change management and training. You know, as long as you're bringing in something new, there's always some change management that is required for people to accept the new system. And also there's some training that is required for people to accept and to use the new system. So I also had another category of training and change management, then also data migration. But as a system, they were also going to use some functional facilities from the new system. Say, for example, when it comes to retail, they wanted to use accounts, they wanted to use teller, they also wanted to use customer records, checks, and so on and so forth. So now I'm not talking about categorization. This is what brings in what is called a product-based structure. We're going to discuss more as we move. So you can categorize them. Then within the categories, you start assigning or aligning the products with those categories. Okay? For example, for data migration, one of the expected products in the project is data migration strategy document. So you put it under data migration. What is also expected or under change and training is a training outline and even training materials and so on and so forth. So as you can see, we have not yet started on the activities. We are just grouping our products as part of the planning process. We are just grouping our products. Then once grouping of products, and I have to say this, it all depends on the type of project, especially the projects which you have done before, assuming this is now your third or fourth project. The categorization is very simple because you know what you need and know what to do. And even making the product structure is very also simple. However, there are also cases, probably it's your first time to run that project, or even for all the members, it's also first time, you're not very sure. So putting a product-based structure might be a challenge, or the categorization might be a challenge. So this brings us to what is called a product flow diagram. So instead of having a structure, you just go straight to a product flow diagram. We're going to cover that in the next section. So what it means is you now need to know the flow of your products. Which one is going to start first? Which one has got a dependence? Which ones can be run in parallel? That is also very, very important. Categorization. So this is the third part of it. Once your product flow is very clear, the way it's structured is you start from the top all the way up to the bottom. There's also another process that you need to take through. It's called bottom-up approach. So your product flow is going to be like this, which means you have your core banking system. Okay, let me illustrate that. So your project, Let me illustrate that. So your product flow is going to be like this. You have your core banking system. I'm giving an example of a banking system because I've just done that. You have your core banking system at the top, okay? Then you have other categorization like data migration. You have also functional, specific for functional. And you also have integration. And then on top of even integration, you have also infrastructure. And you also have change and training. So if I take, for example, the functional category, you can also further make deeper categories. You have a retail category. You can also have lending or credit category. And you can also have finance category. You can also have trade finance category. So now with these categories, you can also start having the actual products. I'll show you. I'll take the one for retail. So for retail, you're going to have account products. You're going to have check products. You're going to have teller products, as an example. So with these levels of categorization in the actual product, which is normally at the bottom, when you want to create a product flow diagram, you go right at the bottom and take the products. For example, I'm going to take this product called account. Okay? Then I'm going to take another product called checks. So you now have a list of the products that you're going to create throughout the project. You now need to create a product flow diagram from that. So product flow diagram, you start with the sequencing of the products. Say, for example, the banking example I was giving about, there is no way you can start by creating or by doing teller transactions before creating a customer and account. So the expectation here is you have your customer record, then the customer will open an account, then using that account, the customer can now do teller withdrawal or teller deposit. So that sequence is quite important. Once you're able to sequence your products, you now know the dependencies. So you start by top to bottom, and then you ask a number of questions as you start from the bottom up. What can go wrong? Or what could be missing? Or does it really have a dependence on what we have at the top? Through my experience, I've seen that once you do the bottom-up approach, you might even come up with additional products, which either you had missed during the workshop, or probably you had missed based on some oversight, and therefore you have to add them. So you have to add those specific additional products into your product flow. So that product flow forms the next activities. Okay. So you now have your product flow. The next activity is to create a project schedule, okay, or schedule of activities. So this is what most project managers, they want to refer to as plan. If you ask them, where's your plan? They just give you the schedule. They don't give you anything else, which normally is not the correct way. So on the schedule of activities, you already have the flow, you already have the dependencies. So that is enough for you to put into a tool. For example, I normally use Microsoft project, sometimes Asana, and also even Trello, but the option is yours. So what it means is you now take the flow of the products and then you capture them into a tool. If you want, you can use Excel. I've also seen others using Excel, especially for small projects. So what it means is you now have a flow, you now need to insert activities. What is required to create that product? This is where the traditional approach merges with the product-based approach. But I believe by now you have seen the advantages and the strength of using product-based approach as compared to only using the traditional activity-based approach. So this is the stage where the two merge. You now have your products, you know what you want to produce. Now you need to insert activities. How are you going to produce the product? Okay, so you go through the activity lists that are required for each and every product. Say, for example, I was giving you a banking example. I now want to put the activities to create an account. Oh no, our account has got charges. So you must have an activity to say setup charges. We all know that an account has got interest. It could be debit or credit, depending on the product. You now need to put an activity to say, I need to set up interest charges. I need to set up credit interest. I need to set up debit interest. Okay? And you also know that accounts, they also have posting restrictions. So you're going to put an activity for posting restrictions, no debit or no credit. So you move on to the next activity based on the product. Say, for example, I give you the banking project I was talking about. We can even talk about lending or credit, assuming it's a staff loan as a product. So you know within your product list, you have a staff loan. So you now need to set up the loan interest amount. You need to set up the repayment frequency. You need to set up the expiry, all those activities. So your product, and then inside the product, you have activities. Now, what is expected, or the best way to move from there, is to move on to what is called estimation. I have to tell you, from my experience, estimation is not something very easy. But sometimes it's also easy, especially if you are doing estimation on a project which you have done before or something similar. For example, you might say in terms of construction of the foundation of a building, it takes 3 weeks. Because previously maybe it took 2 weeks or 4 weeks. So on average, you're saying 3 weeks. Or you can even say the requirements gathering for this particular software, it will also take, say for example, 2 days or 3 days. So it's on the activities that you have. You start doing estimation for each and every activity. How long is it going to take to complete that activity? So that process also brings us to the bottom approach process and also the top to bottom approach process. So you can be asking, Oscar, what is this thing you're talking about? So I'm going to show you as an example. So I'm going to show you as an example. Remember what I spoke about? I've got retail as a category. So I've got accounts as product, and within accounts, I've got interest setup. Okay. I also have charges. I also have posting restrictions. But within retail also, I might have also teller as a product. For teller, I have withdrawals. I also have deposits. Okay. So I might also have lending or credit, which has got, say, staff loan or even personal loan. Okay. So for this staff loan, there's also interest rates. Okay. There's also expiry date. Okay, for the loan, and you also have repayment frequency, which is repayment frequency of the loan. So when I say bottom-up approach, you start with estimation of the activities. So I'm going to take the activities for accounts as an example. So posting restriction. So posting restriction, maybe 2 days. And charges, maybe 3 days for that activity. And then for interest, maybe 6 days. So I might also have lending or credit, which has got... So estimation is not very easy. But my advice is it's mostly judgmental. You need to make a judgment, either based on your previous experience or even based on some research you might have done on the internet or some case study that you have gone through for a specific project. But there is no one-size-fits-all formula. You can't say, I'm researching on the internet, how do I calculate estimation? It is estimation from the meaning. It might not be very, very accurate, but at least it can give a guideline in terms of what you're going to achieve. So estimation is also very, very important. Now, the second section now is on scheduling. Scheduling, we are talking about the start date and the end date. So you already have your number of days that you expect to set up, say for example, accounts. You said 8 days, but when are you going to start? So there are so many ways to do scheduling, and I can tell you the most common one is to use what is called the precedence networks. So the precedence networks are very simple to consider if you have mastered them. But initially, they might be intimidating if this is your first time to do project planning. So the other section also is to do with Gantt charts. Gantt charts, you list your activity to the left, then you draw the bars going to the right, indicating the period you are scheduling that. Most of the softwares these days, they actually use precedence networks more than any other alternative. That is what the precedence network is done. You now have your, remember we started with a list of products, we did a product flow, and also we did a product-based structure. We now have our network diagram, which shows how much time it's going to take. Don't stress yourself about these network diagrams. This day and age, we now have softwares, and they are very good and quick at doing this. But it is also in your interest for you to know what is happening in the backend. Because if you don't know what is happening in the backend, if there's an error or you want to make any analysis, it becomes very difficult for you to pick those issues. So just appreciate the concept. These days, the softwares and even the coming in of AI, all these things are now automated. But you still have the visibility. If you want to view the network diagram, most of these softwares, they also give you an opportunity to do that. So you can also view them. Now, after doing the scheduling through the networks, which means you now know the start and the end dates, you now know the duration, it is also apparent that you can plot it on a Gantt chart. Gantt chart becomes very easy once you have your network diagram, precedence network diagram. All these softwares you see giving you Gantt charts, in the backend, they're actually doing the same process of precedence network calculation. So it becomes very easy to come up with a Gantt chart once you have this. So I've seen so many other softwares, they also use this Gantt chart using arrows, but that can also complicate the Gantt chart diagram. The arrows, they might be mixed, crisscrossing, and so on and so forth, especially if the products are also running in parallel. It becomes very difficult to see the process. But if they are sequential, it's also very straightforward. You can also use them if you want. Myself, I normally turn them off, and then I focus on my Gantt chart. So in this section, I'm going to take you through the documentation of a plan. Remember, we are doing the planning from scratch all the way up to the end. So many project managers, they make a mistake when it comes to what is a plan. They think it's just a list of activities that is a plan. There is more to it, and yet from my experience, when you have a list of activities, a schedule of activities, you now need to document. Because when you're planning, you have seen it when we're going through the network activity. When you're planning, there's a thought process that you are taking into consideration as you come up with your project plan. That thought process, except for those who are in the workshop, no one else knows what were you thinking, what were you doing. So that is why it is recommended that after coming up with a schedule of activities, you now need to document. So I'll take you through the most important sections that you need to document in a project plan document. The first one is you should be able to pick and identify the objectives and the goals of that plan. Say, for example, the plan is supposed to deliver the project within 18 months. That must be very clear. What are you planning about? You must be able to capture that information. Next one. Then the second section is also the purpose. What is the purpose of that plan? Is it only a level? What is the purpose of that plan? Is it only a stage plan? Is it only a team plan? Remember what I said earlier, in terms of planning, you have 3 levels: the project plan, the stage plan, and also the team level plan. The idea of planning those areas is the same. So you go through the same process of products, product flow, and so on and so forth. But the advantage of stages and team plans is most of the products, the definitions are the same. Unless if you discover new products, then you just have to update them. So one of the sections is the purpose. Why are you planning for this? Then the second one, or the third one, is the assumptions. When you're doing any planning process, there are a number of assumptions you consider. For example, you might assume that all the resources are going to be available. Okay? That can hold on up to the end of the project, or it might change from stage to stage. You might assume also that the approved budget okay, is not going to be exceeded, as an example. You might even assume that the period that you have included or you have estimated in the plan is accurate. So you go through a lot of assumptions. And then you can also talk about constraints. There are so many constraints in every project. For example, it could be budget, it could be cost. And those constraints are also baselined. If you want to understand more about project baselines, I have a video on project baselines. You can also watch it from my channel. So it is also important you also capture those constraints that you considered when you're planning. They are very important, especially when you are presenting to the project board. They want to understand and appreciate what were you thinking when you're coming up with that plan. What did you consider? So it could be technological constraints. It's also possible. It could be even economic. It's also possible. Or even legal. It's also possible. So there are so many constraints that you have to include in that particular section. Then the next section, which is expected to be part of your documentation, is dependencies. You see, unless if it's a project that is run in isolation, these days most of these projects, they have dependencies. They can depend on technology, as an example. They can even depend on the environment, as an example. They can also be run as part of a program, which means they have a dependence on other projects. So you also need to include the dependencies when you are documenting your plan. That is very, very important. It will save you a lot in future if you want to make any reference, or in case you want to follow up on anything. You know you have a dependence on this particular project because you're going to use the output as your input in a project. So it makes life easy when you're a project manager. Then, the next section also that is expected is a summary of your plan. Remember, your plan has got so many products, but you need to summarize for this product. When is it expected to be initiated in terms of activities? When is it expected to be finished? How many days? And so on and so forth. So you also need to have that summary in your documentation so that when you present, like what I normally do, when I present to project board, I don't spend more time. I've seen so many project managers going line by line on the project schedule. You're wasting people's time. You share the schedule, but you present your plan documentation. That is what they need more than the schedule that you are presenting. So you're going to tell them, on this particular stage, my assumption is the supplier resources are going to be available, for example. On this particular stage, my assumption is inspectors, they're going to come on time, as an example. Or even auditors, they're going to come on time. Or even risk assessment is going to be done on time. So you also need to make that summary and then you present. There is also one section which most project managers, they leave out. This is the confidence level. I'm telling you, if one of the project members, if one of the board members has been a project manager before or has run projects before, the question they always ask, I've seen it in my projects, is what confidence level do we have on this particular plan? What confidence level do we have on these estimations? What confidence level do we have? What confidence level do you have in terms of the products that you want to produce? That is also very, very critical, and it's also very important for you to be able to answer that. Say, for example, you are running a project which is similar to what you have done before, and you know maybe they were successful before. So you can say my confidence level is 90%, 80%, something like that. There's no problem in doing that. But there are also some projects, maybe it's your first time to go through them. Then you can say my confidence level in terms of estimation, or my confidence level in terms of the product is 20%. It's also acceptable. And it will help you in future, in case there's a problem, you've already told them that this is my first project, or this is the first project for the organization. We have never done this. So all these estimations, they are based on 20% confidence level. So when you're documenting your plan, you also need to put your confidence level. Then you also need to put your tolerance in terms of the plan. Remember, tolerance, the highest level comes from project board. But even in your plan, you are saying a specific stage is supposed to run for 2 months. But if it runs for 2 months, 1 week, it's acceptable. Okay? And you also need to make sure you have that buffer in your planning process before you document. Because some members are going to ask you, do you have any buffer on this particular stage? You are supposed to say yes or no. But in most cases, you should say yes. Part of the planning process is to make sure you're including buffer. Okay? Then the other section that you also need to put on your plan documentation is the follow-up actions that you're going to take after the planning. You know, there's some items which might not be very clear during planning. You take note of them and then you document them to say, based on this plan, I'm still yet to get, say for example, to confirm the dates from the supplier, to confirm the dates from the vendor, and so on and so forth. So these are the main sections. I know it depends on the organization. It also depends on the type of project, but documentation of your schedule or of your plan is very important. So that when you do presentation, people, they do appreciate what were you thinking about, what did you have in mind when you're creating that plan. That is very clear. Then the other section to create additional videos based on the concepts or also on the points that we've discussed in this video on project planning. You can reach out to me or you can let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.